On Jackets TV, presented by Ohio Health. Bob McElligott alongside of Jody Shelley here today as the Blue Jackets get set to take on the Carolina Hurricanes. This will be the fourth of 5 meetings this year between these two teams. The Blue Jackets have won 2 of the first 3, although they did blow a lead and drop the last game between these two. That was in Carolina. But Jody, the Blue Jackets feeling pretty good about themselves coming into this game today based on their shootout win in Minnesota on Saturday.
Yeah, wasn't that a great win? It was a great feeling. I mean, you go into Minnesota, just a tight-fought, hard-fought game again. And the Blue Jackets in that, they got down 2-0 in that shootout, which is remarkable. And you remember the feeling when they were down 2-0? I mean, it was kind of like, oh, this is going to end quick.
When I packed up my computer and I was ready to go to the dressing room.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
That's the way it normally works.
Yeah, I know. And you actually packed up at the 5-minute mark, didn't you?
Well, yes, I did.
Anyways, that's our secret. But you packed up. Yeah, it was like kind of like, oh, down 2-0. Okay, Sergei has to make this save. He does. Goal, and Isamov. And then they're back in it. It goes to sudden death. And then that Johansson goal, which they reviewed because they thought it was actually a rebound, which we didn't. They thought it was it had touched the goalie. Boy, was it ever exciting in that building. And then on the plane ride home, these guys had a day off Sunday. They practiced yesterday. And now they're here today, and this is back to business. And I tell you what, the landscape changes. Every time you take a breath or take a moment off, the landscape changes. Yeah. So they go from second in the Metropolitan Division. Now they're third. They're still not in the wild card. They're ahead of the wild card line, which is a good spot to be. But they know there's big games tonight all around the league. And I'll tell you what, I've spoken with guys on other teams in this chase. Scott Hartnell is one of them. And they are on pins and needles. They want things to happen against the Blue Jackets the same way we want things to happen against the Flyers and the Rangers. So the feeling that we have here is felt just the same in these other markets. So it's an exciting time around the league, especially in the Metropolitan Division.
Well, we were talking about that shootout victory on Saturday in Minnesota. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of that game. And you're going to find that most of the highlights come in between the pipes from this guy, Sergei Bobrovsky, and the way that he played. He was outstanding. The Blue Jackets weren't crisp at the beginning of the game, but he sure was.
Oh, he was, and he was sharp, and he kept that team in it. And there were some point-blank chances that Minnesota had. You see that one there. How about this one right here? It's just he makes it look easy, and sometimes you take for granted the play. But there were some turnovers. There were a lot of jump from the Minnesota Wild, who have big firepower. That top line of theirs with Parise, and they picked up Molson at the deadline. You see some of these saves. There are some people that can score, and I'll tell you, it was an interesting game. It was fun. It was boring at times with the goaltending. I mean, not boring, but not the scoring end to end. But it sure ended up being an exciting finish. Well,
Darcy Kemper on the other side, the rookie goaltender for the Minnesota Wild, was just as good as what you just saw from Sergei Bobrovsky. That's why when we finished regulation, there was a Dalton Prout goal for the Blue Jackets and a Jason Pominville goal for the Minnesota Wild, and it was 1-1. In overtime, no surprise, overtime didn't decide anything. So we did go to the shootout. Let's take a look at the shootout again and watch how these two guys, Artem and Nisimov, though, this is a huge goal. You mentioned down 2-0 in the shootout, and Nisimov comes out, does a great job. Then Pominville can't finish here. And then Letestu's goal, his was the most impressive to me.
This is clutch. I mean, that's a must score, and that's a tough opportunity to be in. This is an extra. Oh, this is extra innings, right?
Yeah, big save right there. And then here's the Johansson goal that had to be reviewed here. There they thought it was a poke check. It wasn't. And you look at the whiff right there by Darcy Kemper.
And you talk about, like, how about having Ryan Johansson in the 4-hole in your shootout? I mean, that's a nice luxury to have. That kid's got some serious skill. And Letestu, that shootout, having him in the third position must-score situation, there was something calming about that. I mean, he was like that all game. And you mentioned it on the radio broadcast, and you look at the standings here now this morning. This is fresh as of last night, as of this morning, sorry. You see where Columbus sits, 76, tied with points with the Rangers, but actually hold the playoff position in the third hole.
And you also see the Rangers have played 69 games, the Blue Jackets 67. So I know those games in hand mean nothing unless you win them, but it's good to have those.
It's nice to have those in your pocket because they're going to run out of games. When you sit here in these points, and one of these games, the Jackets are up 1-0. We found out yesterday that the Dallas game will be played on the 9th. It'll turn into a back-to-back situation where we play at home against Phoenix. head to Dallas, and then right to Florida for the final 2 games of the season.
Yep, and there you can see that Washington's still lurking. But they do have to go out to California and go on a road trip.
Oh, they haven't done that yet?
No, they haven't done that. Sergei Bobrovsky right there in between the pipes for the Blue Jackets, getting his early morning work in here today. And, again, this guy, not just the Minnesota game, but you go back to the game against San Jose the other day that the Blue Jackets lost in the shootout. He has been the constant. He's come back from the Olympics every bit as good as he was when he left.
No question. And he really came back from that injury, has been a different cat earlier in the year. He named the first star of the week this year. You see there at the bottom. That was Artem Anisimov last week, and now Sergei this week. 2 big keys. And to go back, you went back to that San Jose game. You think it went to a shootout. Think about Artem Anisimov not playing in that game. He put in a big goal in the shootout last game, and there's little details that every guy brings to this lineup, and that was a valuable thing late in the game, or in the shootout, sorry, to be Mr. Clutch. So a lot of elements here make up big parts of this team, and Todd Richards has more decisions tonight to make, because it sounds like Como is going to be back in after serving his 2 games. They got a win in Minnesota, so sometimes coaches don't change up, but Bobby must have really liked what he saw out of Como, the games that he came back.
Yeah, apparently. There's Artem Anisimov right there, and he did miss that San Jose game because his wife gave birth to their first child. He's got a daughter now. I liked when he got off the plane the other night. You said, Artie, enjoy the family time. And he got a nice smile. I don't know if he got any sleep, but he got a nice smile there. But here he is today back in the lineup, and he is such a key cog here. I think when you go back and you look at the trade that the Blue Jackets made with the Rangers for Rick Nash, yes, Brandon Dubinsky is an important part of this team, but this guy's kind of the sleeper where, people that are in the know around the league went, doggone it, they got Artem Anisimov. Yep. But if you didn't know who he was, you're finding out.
I think you're right, because he's a big guy with skill. He's young. And he's a guy that, I'll tell you what, Bob, he is a student. He studies players. He watches tape on guys like Datsuk's defensive position, and you pointed out all year. He's a guy that, there wasn't a lot of goals coming from him early in the year. Actually, there wasn't goals coming at the big time when we thought we needed it, as the Blue Jackets would lose a couple games. And where's Anisimov? Why isn't he performing as well as he should be? Well, guess what? He's been sound defensively all year. He's smart. He's reliable. And I'm going to tell you, I played with him on the 4th line with the New York Rangers, and it was thrilling for me to play with a guy like this. It was him and Brandon Prust. But I was amazed that every time I needed to move a puck or put a puck somewhere, he would be there to pick it up and control the play. So he's a guy that's quietly moving his way up depth charts. He did it in New York, and then the Blue Jackets got him here. And I'll tell you, when he's out of the lineup like he was the other night, he is missed in big ways.
You were talking about Blake Como. He had the 2-game suspension for a hit on Brendan Smith in the Detroit game. And Todd Richards did allude yesterday that he will be back in the lineup. There you see his totals on the year. Totals not, they're down a bit because he spent so much time out with the knee injury, but it's not all about points for him. It's this bottom number, the hits, the 139. That's what he really brings, that physical element. And even though Corey Trupp played very well on the 4th line with Derek McKenzie and Mark Letestu, apparently Todd Richards feels that there is a place for Blake Como playing down the stretch here trying to get in the playoffs.
And I think he's right. I mean, it's definitely he's an impact player in that way. He's a physical presence. I go back to that one game where he had 8 hits. I'm telling you what, Bob, it's hard to get 8 hits, I'm telling you. Only one guy has the puck on the ice at a time. It's not like practice where you can just go run around and hit guys without the puck. You can only hit the guy with the puck. You have to have that speed, that timing, and that sense, and he's got all of that. So he's definitely a guy I think that players like to have in the lineup, especially with Jared Boll being out. There's a physical presence that other teams will pay attention to, and I think Carolina having some big forwards. They got some big centermen that if you give them too much time and space, they can do some damage. And their defensemen, I bet you this morning, reading that Blake Como will be back in the lineup, aren't too happy because they know going back for a puck, they'll be looking over their shoulder.
Let's talk about another guy that came back into the lineup against the Minnesota Wild. We hadn't seen him since the Olympic break because he got hurt playing for Team Russia in the Olympics, and that was Fedor Tutin. He comes back, and he was himself. He was playing with James Wisniewski as a pair the other night, and he's just calm, cool, collected. There are his totals on the year. But this guy, we talk about the fact that we don't talk about him, which is a compliment to him.
Isn't that funny, though? It's something that it is the ultimate compliment for a guy like Fedor Tutin and Ryan Murray. These guys have quiet games, but they do things right. You notice a defenseman, when he makes a mistake, or he does something spectacular. And you know what? These guys do little things very well, and their job is to defend and protect the front of the net and their goalie and to make smart plays. You think about it, they're the last line of protection between the blue line in the offensive zone and Sergei Bobrovsky 2 zones away. That's a big responsibility when you get the puck there. You have to make decisions with NHL players bearing down on you. A guy like Fedor Tutin, you're talking about a guy with experience, and with experience comes that confidence. And when you have a guy like that in the lineup that has that kind of confidence, it spreads throughout the room and definitely through the other 5 defensemen. So I'm sure Sergei likes to see him back in front of him. He's a familiar face. He's a fellow countryman, but he's also been a teammate here for a couple of years. And I think that the other defensemen are happy to have him back because there's that calming feeling. When I was in Philadelphia, Chris Pronger was there, and when Chris Pronger was out, yeah, we missed his skill set, but we missed most his presence because he settled guys down. There was no one in the lineup who tried to play a higher position or tried to do too much because Chris did a lot of things very well, and it made guys be able to just relax and do their basic job and do it very well.
It was a tough decision who to take out of the lineup the other night because everybody had been playing well, but Todd Richards opted to take Nick Schultz out of the lineup, and
Close.
I was
same team, right?
It was 50-50.
Weren't they both on Edmonton?
They were both on Edmonton. He took Nick Schultz out of the lineup, and he left Dalton Prout in. And even though Nick Schultz played for Minnesota, had a lot of family there, this is not the time of the year where you appease an individual. You've got to do what you can as a team. And so Dalton Prout stays in, and wouldn't you know, he scores the goal in the final 25 seconds of the second period that winds up. There's a look at Nick right there. But he scores the goal, does Dalton Prout, that puts the Blue Jackets up 1-0 at the time. Not the source of offense that you're normally looking for. You're looking for him to be the big stay-at-home defenseman. But, again, sometimes those decisions just turn out exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, that's a 1-1 tie. Dalton Prout gets that big goal in a real tight game. Shot from the point. Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about having family and friends in town. I mean, that doesn't weigh into the decision at all. It just Todd went with the bigger defenseman group that night in Minnesota, and it worked well. So big decision by Todd, and he's going to have a lot of these decisions, but he's going to do what's best for the team on that given night or the organization, and that's where they're at right now. It's all about winning games. So it's not about feel-good stories at the moment. Those are, for the off-season and maybe for the preseason. But right now, it's an exciting time here in Columbus, Ohio with this team. And it's really creating a buzz around the team, Bob. I'll tell you, around the league, I meant to say. This is a team that no one wants to play. And you talk about Philadelphia. They've become that team now, too. They've found their identity. But I find with the Jackets, they've had to prove it this year, and they've got that workman-like mentality. And you would expect them with the goaltending they have to be able to do some good things here in the next month.
All right, let's stay on the blue line right now. Let's talk about James Wisniewski because it's not only his defense but his offense. If you go back to the San Jose game the other night, the reason the Blue Jackets get into the overtime and they get into the shootout, the reason they got a point was because James Wisniewski came up with a massive shot in the third period, that big slap shot that he's kind of refined this year. He's kind of picked his spot with that slap shot and has gone with some other options this season, but it's all worked for him. And you and I have talked about this before. With James Wisniewski, it seems like when he makes a mistake, it is a very glaring mistake, and it stands out. But then he does a lot of things that, the mistake will take away the focus of all the good little things that he does sometimes get wiped out by one big mistake.
Isn't that funny, though? He's a player that kind of plays on that edge of high risk, and he does it in kind of a way where you're like, sometimes as a fan you sit there and go, really? Again? That's the honest-to-God truth. But he is a guy that has had that booming shot, and everybody knows it in the league. And that was really the first time we've seen it all year. But that was a funny goal, and we're going to take a look at it here. He's one-on-one with a goalie on the far side of the ice. Watch this. The puck goes to the other side of the ice. Now there's 8 guys on one side, 9 guys, and there's James and the goalie. And it's funny, I spoke with him about it. I said, how about that, you versus the goalie? I said, that was it was like a pitcher against a big hitter. And you went fastball. He said, I went fastball. He said, I had to. And I said, that's a nicer shot. I mean, you can't make it a nicer shot. And he said, no, it was off the crossbar and in. And we haven't seen that shot. Also, another part of the conversation I had with him, I said, you haven't really used that shot a lot this year. He said, no. Use the word you used, refined. He's got a lot of his points just by getting the puck to the net. And that's smart. That's a veteran play because when he has to wind up and get that stick behind him and take that shot, it gives more time for the players to close on him. And also on the flank, when he's on the side, waiting for that pass to come for the one-timer, there's already a guy standing there defensively. It's kind of like the Ovechkin because they know that shot is coming. They know that that's his weapon. So for Wisniewski, he's got 39 points. 33 of them are assists, and they're most assists because he either fakes the shot and goes to a pass to a guy, or he risks the shot through and there's a rebound or a tip in front. So I think he's had a very, very smart season. I'm glad you brought him up because he's a guy that's done a great job defensively too. And you see him here talking to Jack Johnson. This is a power play conversation, Bob, where they're trying to just figure out, hey, if I'm going to do this, you do that, and we'll try this. Or that.
This or that. Another guy, you just saw him in the picture there for a second, Ryan Johansson. Again, the Blue Jackets, they need their production from him. There he is right there on the bench. And we showed that shootout goal that he got the other night that wins the game. You look back at the San Jose game, he had one of the goals in that game against the San Jose Sharks. He leads his team in the offensive categories. He's a guy that I know he's a young guy still, but he certainly is somebody that the Blue Jackets are going to be leaning on here coming down the stretch. And he was a little bit quiet in points for a while, but right now would be his time to rise back up and add to those 50 points he has.
Yeah, how about that 50 points? He's got a good feel about him. He's got some confidence. He likes the situations he's in. Listen, he's going to play against the top defensive pair of any team. That's not easy for a young guy. He's a guy that teams leave this building and they talk about. I'll have conversations with teams we play against, with players I know. And one was Joe Thornton the other night. I spoke with him and I said, it's funny. I actually spoke with him before the game and after. Before the game, I said, "How was the game, the last game before the break against the Jackets, where you guys won 3-2? How were they to play against?" And he said, didn't give them any credit. I said, "Well, it was a tight-fought game, wasn't it?" He said, "We were already in Cabo," as if to say we weren't interested. So then I get him here the other day, and I go, "Joe, after the game," I said, "Joe, how are the Jackets to play against?" He says, "They're good. They work hard." I said, "How do you like that Johansson?" He goes, "He's good. Is he Swedish?" I said, "Stop it. Swedish." Anyways, he was impressed with Johansson. And I said, "Yeah, he's a big fan of yours." And he said, "Really?" So anyways, interesting conversation. Ryan Johansson is definitely making some noise around the league. I've talked to other defensemen that play against him, and they compare him to players like Getzlaf. He definitely has that potential, and we've seen flashes of it at times, you say, Bob. But he's a guy that's going to be watched around the league, especially this push that we've had here.
Yeah, and I mentioned how he's got that knack for finding the back of the net, and you know that by the fact that he's got 26 goals so far this year. And, against San Jose, you're talking about him playing against Joe Thornton. Well, this is just a good example of exactly what he does as Nick Foligno feeds him, and boom, right there it is in the back of the net. Quick release.
Pretty quick, eh? I mean, that's confidence, too, to get that shot away right away.
See, right now he's taking faceoffs, and I think this is interesting because the other night in Minnesota, there were a number of times he did not take the faceoff. Boone Jenner stepped in and took it. And when Todd Richards was asked after the game, he said, well, Ryan just wasn't feeling it, taking the faceoffs, and he felt that he wasn't very strong, and he felt Boone was better on his backhand. He said that was something communicated between the two of them. Ryan would say, why don't you step in and take this one? What does that say about two young players that they're having those kind of conversations and figuring that out?
Well, it just says great things. I mean, it just says awareness. That's a team-first mentality. I mean, a lot of those guys go in there with that thought, they just want to battle and bear down and do that for the team. Well, if he's not feeling it, he's going to step aside, and I thought Boone did a pretty good job in there. It's nice to see that chemistry between two young guys and be able to do those types of things. I didn't notice that, but that's a pretty good observation by you there, Bob.
Well,
you see it all
once in a while. Yeah.
Did you read that somewhere, or did you really see it?
I can't
Don't
divulge
admit
any of my secrets. Another guy, and there's Boone Jenner right there standing along the bench.
Looks like he's just relaxing there, leaning on the board.
Yeah, that won't last long. That will last.
He's ready for his
face-off.
pre-game nap. Yeah. He's exhausted. Look at him. Oh, I'm so tired.
The opening face-off.
Just want to go eat spaghetti.
There's no question. Another guy I want to talk about with you is R.J. Umberger. And he is, he's really ramped it up here in the last 2 weeks. And he's becoming a bigger part of what's going on here. And he did say, I talked to him on the radio after a game last week, and I said, it seems to me that you feel it's important to get into the playoffs. And he said, well, when I first came into the league and I got there with Philly, I just thought it was an every year thing that you show up. And he goes, all of a sudden, I haven't been there for so long, and now he really wants to get back. And that says a lot. As you spend time in this league, veteran players, the longer you're not in the playoffs,
that funny?
The more you want to be there, right?
Isn't that something? You take it for granted. You think that this is the playoffs. It's interesting that he said that, because when I played with Jeremy Roenick in San Jose, he stood up one time and said, my first year in the league, I made it to the conference final or the Stanley Cup Finals. He said, I thought it was easy. It was a given. Here we go. We're with the Blackhawks, and never made it back. And I remember that last year. We had a really good team. And he said, I'd love to get back there. Didn't quite motivate us enough, but it was an interesting story. And you see that. Like, that's a great point with veteran players. You get to a situation, or you're in a situation, you think, I'm always going to be a part of this. But he's definitely got a different step going right now. He's got almost like a carefree attitude out there, and love to see it. I just love to see that. When you see guys worry or think too much about things, I find that they it's almost like they cramp up when they're trying to do things. But he's got an extra step, an extra bounce in his step, we'll say. And it's good to see that out of that big man.
Here, let's show you a little extra step that he had in the last game here at home when he was penalized. He comes out of the penalty box, and Brandon Dubinsky leads him perfectly, and he does this. 5-hole on Alex Stalock
then
right
he
there.
Tickles the ice there.
Yeah.
Throws a little fist up.
So, those are the kind of things, obviously that he can bring to the table. And the Blue Jackets need him to bring to the table. It's all part of that balanced line combination that this team has.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, you look at this group. There's something about this group that's it's kind of special, because they all like each other, it looks like, on the ice. And, here's Nick Schultz is getting talked to by Todd. Not sure if that's a good conversation or a conversation to say, hey, we're going to stick with the same defensive pair. It's interesting.
Is this where he seeks out the guys that might not know if they're going to play or not?
Right. This is the moment. Well, this is the moment where they know if they're playing or not, because the lineup is posted on the board this morning. But this is just a conversation. Hey, just keep working hard. You're a big part of this, or whatever they're going to say. Stay positive, because at some point I'm going to need you. So, or maybe do some extra conditioning, because you got to be ready to play 20 minutes when you get in. So, just positive conversations to have. But this group is pretty. I find it a very fascinating group, because they're just. I love that there's no superstars, and I love how hard they have to work. And I think the identity here is such an appreciating. The fans appreciate it so much, because you watch a game and they're never really out of it. Okay, right. Chicago, whatever. They were out of it the second half of that game, but they're never really out of a 2-1, a 3-2, a 4-1 game. They're still coming, and I love that about this team. Yeah, and they're locked in right now. You can just see it in those games that they play, as you said, with the exception being the Chicago game. But, even the other night when San Jose came back and they got 2 goals and all of a sudden took the lead in the third period, they battled back and they got it to overtime. And I know they were disappointed about not getting the second point, but if you come out of that game with 0 points, you're in big trouble. That's
we saw
a huge
the standings.
Huge point. And then they go into Minnesota and get back to a shootout and win it.
Right. Come back.
So those situations that come, as long as they don't keep repeating themselves, okay, you have to learn. It's amazing to me that the quick turnaround, the quick battle that they have for some situations, and it's just a tribute to their character, Todd Richards still on the ice when he does come off, which will be in the next couple of minutes here. We will get him on and we'll talk to him about tonight's game. We haven't talked at all about the Carolina Hurricanes. Last time these two teams got together, they were battling for playoff position. Carolina's fallen off here in the last couple of weeks. They're sputtering, but that doesn't mean that they can't do damage. Isn't that interesting, though? Because the last time we played them, there was no separation, really, between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Blue Jackets in the standings. It was very, very close. But they went on that 5-game road trip, and they lost the first 4 of them. So that was that really put a dent in their plans, and here they are now. They're sitting at 67 points, Bob, and the wild card is at 76. So they're 9 points out of the wild card position. So they're pretty much cooked. they've only played 67 games, so they do have 15 games left. But you can't even see them on there. So, yeah, they're at 67 points, so you see they're not even on the radar here. But, yeah, they're a team, I'm telling you. Blue Jackets should be very familiar with what kind of team they're playing here tonight.
And now they become a team that is where guys are playing for jobs. Head coach Todd Richards has made his way off the ice. We're going to have him here in just a minute to talk about tonight's game against the Hurricanes as the Blue Jackets try to pick up more points on home ice here tonight, try to build upon that big 2-1 shootout victory in Minnesota on Saturday evening. And, again, this is going to be an interesting game. So Todd Richards is with us right now. And, Todd, we're just talking about the Carolina Hurricanes, how they have sputtered and fallen in the last couple of weeks. But that doesn't take away from them being a dangerous team here tonight, does it?
No, they're a talented group. They got forwards up front, and especially the way that they play. You know, I respect the way that they play. They play a fast north game. They're ready to chip pucks and forecheck you. Their defense will play tight in the offensive zone, make it difficult for you to have clean breakouts coming out of your own zone. So we're gonna have to be really sharp tonight. Again, a very, very talented group over on the other side.
What are you going to do with your lineup tonight? You basically said yesterday you want to get Blake Como back into the lineup. What will you do to make that happen here?
Well, Cam Atkinson will be the one coming out, and you know what? He's been fine. He's been working, but Corey Tropp's been very good. Como before the suspension was very good. You got Horton, you got Foligno all on the right side. So we feel as a coaching staff that Trop and Como are one guys that provide a lot of energy and some physical play, and that's what we want to see from our club.
Have you ever had this kind of luxury before as a coach where you can almost you have so many guys around that you can alter your personnel to play that game on that particular night and get the matchups that you want, at least you think that you want going into the game? Well,
I've never had this many forwards at this time of year. Really ready to play, and it's not like we have our team sputtered or we've struggled in certain areas. We've had guys step in and contribute and play well, and it's just one of those things. By default of numbers, somebody's got to come out of the lineup.
Hey Todd, Jody here. I'd look at Mark Letestu, and I didn't know much about him, but he can do it all, can he? I mean, I watched him the other night. I mean, that shootout goal he had was clutch. But all situations last game, he was really a guy you could lean on. Is that the guy you just look to in all situations as a coach?
Yeah, he's a trustworthy guy. He's a very versatile guy. You saw it. You can use him in shootouts. He's a great penalty killer for us. He's played center. He's played right wing. We've used him on defense on the power play. For everyone listening out there, that the best thing you can do is earn the coach's trust. And when you earn the coach's trust, a lot of times you're going to get opportunities. And he's earned that.
Defensively, are you going to stay with the same six tonight?
Same six will stay in the lineup tonight, yes.
How did you like Feder Tootin? It was obviously a long layoff for him. He comes in a big game. What did you think about his game?
You know what? He was fine. You know what? He'll get better as we move along here and he starts to get more reps and he gets his timing back and his speed back. Up to where it needs to be, because again, since coming back from the Olympic break is where he's got hurt, and obviously the pace over there was at a level over there comparable probably to what it is right now. But when you miss that amount of time, especially with a leg injury, an ankle injury, you have to wait until it's fully healed before you can really go out and start skating hard. It's different if you have a shoulder or hand injury. You can at least go out and skate, and you're getting your conditioning there, and your legs are starting to feel good. So we're still going to have to monitor him, but I thought he was fine in the game, and we believe he's just going to get better.
Todd, thanks. Good luck tonight.
All right, thank you.
Good luck, Todd.
That's head coach Todd Richards joining us on the Blue Jackets morning skate. We'll get some player reaction from the dressing room coming up in just a bit. So there you have it. Cam Atkinson out of the lineup tonight. The same six defensively, and Sergei Bobrovsky is going to start in between the pipes. What do you think about that, having that luxury with all those forwards to be able to pick and choose?
I think it's great, and it's a team that hasn't been able to get healthy really all year. If you look at still with Jared Bowl out, it's awesome. It's and Ryan Murray is out still. So I don't know. It's pretty special when you can have a team that doesn't win or lose. It doesn't hang on the balance of who exactly is in the lineup. And I'm sure he's happy with it. I mean, you, as a coach, you want to be put in the best possible position, or at anything in life. You want to be put in the best possible position to succeed. And you look at him, you want the luxury of the competition. If you have a player in the lineup who isn't doing what you ask of him, but you have no other option, boy, is that ever? It's got to be frustrating. And you've seen it in any sport. But here he is with guys that are playing well enough to play on any night, but comes out. Even my example is Cam Atkinson, and the other example was Como. When he was in before, he played great. He got injured. He couldn't get back in, and that's why he stayed out of the lineup for so long. So he's waited. Dalton Prout is another guy. He was injured in the beginning of the season. He played enough to get back in. Numbers get back. He was out and couldn't get back in, but he's good enough to play in these situations. So the bar here isn't just at a level of when this guy's back, he'll be in. The bar has been raised with competition, and that's a great thing to have. And
ironically, this is one of those games tonight because you have the Hurricanes. They can open it up a bit. They've got the Stahl brothers.
Oh, yeah.
They've got Semin. They have guys. And I thought maybe this would be a game that Cam Atkinson would play in. But just like against Detroit last week, Todd Richards going with a little bit more grittiness to try to slow down some of those skill guys. And when you look at the schedule going down to the wire here, you find a lot of teams that you're probably going to want to go with a lot of grit against leading up into the playoffs.
Well, yeah, but here's what. You go back to the Chicago game. I mean, there was nothing. There was no response. They're down 5-1, 6-1. Nobody fights. The hits are minimal. Guys are just going through the paces. And you see that as a coach, and you're like, wait a second. We're not doing this. If we're gonna be in the games, we want to battle. We want to have the contact. We want to have that fire and pushback. They didn't have it in Chicago, and I think he realized a few things right away from his lineup, and it only took one game to see that. And I think that the Blue Jackets appreciate having those bangers, those hitters, that physical play in there.
All right, let's go down to the dressing room. Speaking of bangers and hitters, we're going to hear from Derek McKenzie here talking about tonight's contest.
I mean, I've certainly been in their position before, and I think, that's what can make them, a pretty potent team is the fact that, I'm sure there's guys over there that are, playing for spots on teams and knowing the group that they have over there, they're not just going to throw in the white flag. I mean, they're gonna play till they're officially eliminated, and for us, we've said it before and we're going to say it again. I mean, every game is the biggest game of the year for us, and every game this year has been a good game, so I expect nothing different tonight.
I expect this guy on the right side of the line. It seems to not really matter who's over there on that side.
You know what? Obviously a guy who can put the puck in the net and brings a physical presence, so you never know how these games are going to go. You look at the game the other night, Minnesota, and not having a power play, it totally kind of changes the dynamic of the game, and you need all four lines going constantly, and whatever the case may be tonight, we'll try to provide it and help the team do to win.
You thought he was doing pretty good before the suspension. I mean, did you feel the same way?
Yeah.
He thought he was one of the better forwards.
Well, I feel terrible. I know exactly what he went through. I kind of had a similar situation earlier in the year, and Blake's played enough games that whether he misses one or a bunch, he knows exactly. He can play on the first line or the fourth line, so he kind of just changes his game to kind of fit who he's playing with, and we're glad to have him.
Derek McKenzie talking about Blake Como specifically. I know those guys have such an appreciation for each other, and I'm talking about McKenzie, Letestu, Trop, Como. You got to put four of them together because so often three of the four are grouped together.
That's right, and you have respect for all the guys that come in and play with you because they come in, they battle to get in. Once they're in, they're excited. They know their role once they're in there and they're on your line and doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. So you respect their hard work and you appreciate what they do.
Yeah, and another guy you got to appreciate what he does is Nick Foligno, who, again, very quietly is doing a lot of things, whether it's puck possession, whether it's scoring from his belly, passing from his knees, whatever it takes. Nick Foligno is one of those guys that does that. And let's go down and hear from Nick right now.
Yet, or do you think that way, or is this just another game for you guys tonight?
Oh, for sure. It's always a battle whenever we play this team. They match up well against us, and they skate really well. They play a pretty fast style of hockey, so it's always a battle for sure. And these points mean so much to both teams, so I definitely think it's developing into a rivalry for sure.
They're a good 5-on-5 team, but you guys have also played well 5-on-5 lately. What's been the recipe for you guys with all four lines going?
I think it's probably the same as them, as it's our forecheck. I mean, when we get on the forecheck, it's hard for teams to defend us and get pucks out, and they're playing in their end a lot more. So that's kind of been our key for 5-on-5 play, and it's worked well for us, but it's our hard work as well that's kind of come into that. I mean, I guess it works both ways, but I also think, great goaltending has been a huge part of our team, and we've had great goaltending from both guys this year.
It looks like you're going to have a couple of new line mates for tonight's game.
Yeah, I've actually never played with Doobie on a line before, so it'll be pretty fun to play with him. I like the way he plays. Obviously, he plays a pretty similar style, and Calvi's obviously a great talent as well. So we should do well. We should work really hard together and try and help this team the best way we can.
Thanks.
Nick Foligno talking about his new line mates, and when you look at that line on paper, Jody, again, it looks good. It doesn't take much to make stuff look good on this team because of the way these guys play, but you got three hard workers together there in Foligno, Dubinsky, and Calvert. When you talk about that combination, what do you see each one of those guys bringing?
Hard work. I mean, all those guys are they could be game changers too, the way they forecheck, the way they're persistent on the puck. I don't know if there's enough pucks out there for those guys. There's only one. They're going to be fighting for it. That's for sure.
Well, Foligno's going to have it for the most part.
Well, he loves. It's going to be tough to get it from him once he does get it. We know that he's so good with the puck. But Dubinsky's relentless on the puck. Calvert, they're going to be raised. I bet you it's going to be a dog fight to get to the puck in the corner. You might see a lot of three guys on the puck at times, but I like that. I mean, we should have asked Todd why he's switching it up because I did like Jenner with Foligno, but. He's got that luxury. There's players to be filling in on different situations, so nice to see.
But Jenner does go back with Horton and Johansson,
that's
and
right.
A line that was working really well.
Maybe he's trying to get Horton going. I mean, that's part of that too, because
let's talk about that for a moment because he's
okay.
He had the goal in the Dallas game that we didn't play, but we're going to play, but the goal will count. How's that?
Yeah, that's right.
But he did, and I talked to him yesterday. We had a chat yesterday, an internet chat yesterday, and he was very honest and forthcoming, saying, I knew what I was getting into, missing half a season, but I really didn't because I'm still trying to get it going here. And so he's done good things. He's actually done good things away from the puck. But again, when you sign that guy to that kind of money, you're not you are looking for him to do things away from the puck, but you're looking for a lot of
things right away. Right.
And that's probably not fair to him based on what he went through. But
it's not. It's not. I agree with you.
I feel a butt coming.
No buts. No, I agree with you. And I actually feel bad for him because, the situation he was in, he's a guy that expects – he's a professional athlete. He's an elite professional athlete. He expects to be the game changer. He expects to be exactly what we expect from him. He knows. And here he is in a situation where he doesn't look like he's getting physical. And he just doesn't seem like he's engaged. He can engage in some situations. And who knows what's going on with that shoulder and the rest of his body. I mean, he's had so much time off. He had a lockout year, a playoff run to the finals, an off season, a move to Columbus, a rehab stint, and now he's back in the thick of a playoff race. Olympic break, that's right. Now he's back into a thick of a playoff race. Groins, hips, whatever. I mean, it gets tight, and I'm sure there's got to be something else holding him back right now because he doesn't look like that player, and it's the effect of all those layoffs. And listen, as long as he's in the room and he's on the ice, he's helping this team. I'm a big fan of his. I just think that once this season is over and he can get going and get in a good, strong off season and get ready for next season, he'll be that impact franchise player that everyone expects. But right now, his impact is as a leader and as a Stanley Cup champ and as a playoff expert in this room.
And here's what I find funny, that in this room, he came from the Boston Bruins, where if he's not playing like he normally plays, you've got Milan Lucic, and you got Patrice Bergeron, and you got Brad Marchand, and you got a lot of guys that a lot of people know because of the way they've played and they've gotten things done. And here you have just a total group effort, and he can mix into the group. And I agree with you. I think when he is fully healthy and at some point he steps above the group with his talent. But whether that's this year, whether that's next year, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because everybody's finding a way to get the job done. And I know from talking to him yesterday, he really enjoys that because he really likes his teammates here and respects the work they do.
It's great. And he's a good fit here. He's just such a positive person. And I hate to see him beat himself up so much because he doesn't understand his value when he's not having, spin-around goals on a breakaway or setting guys up every shift. He has an impact and a presence and a leadership. I thought when he went in the locker room, it kind of settled things down a little bit because whether he knows it or not, he brings that presence of an elite player and a champion. So to be around that, it kind of settles down other players, whether he's leading the charge or not. But I love seeing him on the ice, and I know his teammates love to have him in the room. But I just don't want to see him beat himself up so much that he's not the game breaker right now.
Well, maybe tonight will be a breakout night for him. Who knows?
We don't know.
We will find out. Well, all of the players that are going to play tonight have left the ice. The healthy scratches are getting a little bit of extra work in, but that's going to do it for our Blue Jackets Morning Skate Live. Tonight, it's the Blue Jackets and the Carolina Hurricanes playing here at 7 o'clock. If you can't make it here, which we hope you do, the gates will open at 6 o'clock tonight. You can watch the game on Fox Sports Ohio. You can listen to it on the Blue Jackets Radio Network. Thanks to head coach Todd Richards and Derek McKenzie and Nick Foligno for all being with us on this morning's show. For Jody Shelley, I'm Bob McElligott. Thank you for watching the Blue Jackets Morning Skate Live on Jackets TV, presented by Ohio Health.